So there's a few elements there. Yeah, you have to take risks in life. And I suppose, like you said earlier, there are certain people that are willing to take risks and certain people that aren't. And those that are generally achieve slightly greater things because you have to take these leaps. You also need a level of arrogance, really.
Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hannes Henche, and on our show we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. Today we have Philippa. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, I didn't make a great introduction here. Maybe you can give us a little bit of a background, what you're doing in the private industry, because, you are actually placing chefs in homes, you're connecting with the families, So, how did you get here?
Okay, cool. It's quite nice having the tables turned on me for a change. I'm normally the one doing the interviewing, so I get to talk about myself for a bit. Favourite thing to talk about. So how did I get into the industry? So I fell into recruitment initially. So recruitment came before the private sector for me. Fell into recruitment, and I think as most recruiters do, I don't know many kids at primary school that sit there and dream of being a recruitment consultant. So you just kind of fall into recruitment, and I'd say 80% of the people that fall into it hate it and leave immediately. A few people sort of love it. Out of the few people that love it, half of them are good at it, half of them are crap at it. And, we all know some cowboy recruiters out there. So those that generally make a career of it are the few that actually really enjoy it and tend to be okay at it. So I fell into recruitment, and I used to work in recruitment. Well, I suppose before I fell into recruitment, I did ski season. So I guess that's where it started. I went to uni, I finished uni, I did a ski season, but not sort of like private staffing, not the private sector level. I was working like a ski bum in Europe. And for those Americans that may or may not understand, in Europe, pre-Brexit, you could be 20 and go out there and just about hold down a job and ski every day and drink every night. And so I went into the ski season, which sort of got me into the ski industry, not the luxury ski industry, but the ski industry. Came back to the UK, didn't know what I wanted to do, walked into a recruitment agency in London to see if I can get just some temporary admin work or something until I figured out what I wanted to do with my life. And then I actually managed to get a job within their branch. So I started working in this recruitment agency, but it wasn't in the private sector. It was for a company called Office Angels, which placed office staff, so receptionists, administrators, etc. So I was there for a couple of years, and even that was a proper spit and sawdust, like old school hardcore recruitment agency where you're just doing cold calls all day long, like back in the day. We're talking quite a lot of years ago now, 15 years ago. But I still bloody loved it. Honestly, I still really loved it, even though in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done. Loved it.
What did you love about it?
Probably similar to a kitchen environment, like camaraderie, really. It's not that just females do recruitment, but a company called Office Angels, it's very pink branding, it's very pink. It's normally the people that work there are female or gay, generally. I don't know any male straights that sort of work for Office Angels. They would work in Reed or Hayes or the more bachelor sounding recruitment agencies. I just had the best bunch of girls, and even now, is it next Tuesday, I'm going for drinks with my Office Angel crew, which is 15 years ago. I was also fortunate enough, and I think this plays a part in a lot of families and work environments. I clicked with my manager really well. He was this 6 foot odd, screaming Scottish gay guy, and got on with him so well. And he literally taught me everything I knew, and he just made my life there so fun. And he taught me loads. And I think if I'd have had a different manager that I didn't click with, who made it more maybe I wouldn't have stayed in recruitment. I always say this in the private sector, that first family will make or break you in the private sector, because they may be the most horrible people ever, and you'd think, and you never want to be there again. Or they may be the most welcoming environment where you can thrive and you do it forever. So that first position that you have in your field of your chosen field, I think will determine the length of time you stay there for. I loved it, and I worked for him, and I loved it. He was actually covering a maternity contract, so I didn't work with him for loads, but it got me. I loved it enough to then, when he moved on to his next post, I stayed. And then what sort of like brought me from the recruitment field into the private sector, which I didn't know much about at this point. The ski season I did was not the private sector. My elder sister, so I'm one of 6 kids, so I'm part of a big family, and my elder sister owns a company called Consensio Holidays, which is a luxury ski operator. So basically they operate chalets in France. If you want to go on a ski holiday, but you've got about 100 grand, 200 grand to spend on your week, then you'd go with her. A bit like the families that charter yachts, really, are the families that would go skiing with Kerry. And when she first started the company, I was fortunate enough in the sense that they would hire all their staff, and then there'd be a slight gap between training their staff and the real paying guests arriving, where they would want to do a trial week in all the chalets, or a trial weekend. So they'd normally invite out some press or some journalists or some suppliers or the senior management family. So as the family of senior management, I got to go out on like 2 or 3 year runnings, like trials at the start of the season. So it got me out there. It was a free weekend. I was getting to live this incredible holiday. And that sort of got me really familiar with the level of service, like being a guest for 3 days. And so I did a few of these ski trials. And so I'd already done a ski season, and I did these trials, done recruitment. And then about two or 3 years into my time at Office Angels, she was looking for a new HR manager. And she asked me, she was just telling me about it, or moaning about it, or stressing about it. And I said, well, look, do you want me to like get the ball rolling a little bit for you? I can stick a couple of adverts up for you in my spare time. I know what you're looking for. I know what Ski Resort looks like. I know what type of staff you need. And I know how to recruit. If you want, I can give it a little go. Thought nothing more of it, started it. A couple of weeks later, sort of said to her, look, you've got a couple of good applicants here. I've got rid of all the crap ones, but you've got a couple of good ones. What do you want me to do with them? Should I send them over to you? And then I remember her ringing me on my mobile at my desk at Office Angels. My manager was literally sat opposite me, and she was like, why didn't you just come and do this job? And I was like, I'm not available next Tuesday at 2. Let me see if the chef's free to come. Just trying to pretend I was on the phone to a client. She was like, come and do you want to be my HR manager? And that was just really odd because, like, I was only 25. The HR manager's, like, quite a big deal at 25. It's a really big company. I had no HR management skills or experience. She was my sister, risky territory. And I loved my job. So there's, like, loads of reasons not to take it. But also, this is pretty cool. I could be a HR manager for one of the top ski operators. No one else is going to give me the opportunity. And normally, to go from recruitment consultancy into HR management here in UK anyway, you often need your CIPD qualification. You need to know what you're doing. Anyway, it was the weirdest thing. I didn't have a freaking clue. I don't have a clue. I'm still winging it. And I remember I decided I was going to take the job. I thought, why not? Worst case scenario, and I say this to people all the time, worst case scenario, just go back to what you're doing before. People shouldn't be daunted by these big potential opportunities. They should just grab it, fake it till you make it, see how you get on.
I think people are more concerned about the public perception of failure. It's not that they don't or think that they can't do it. They're more concerned what happens if I have to come back with my tail between my legs, you know?
I completely agree with you. And I suppose you can't really do much. You can't really say much to people other than don't let it bother you. For me, it would have never bothered me. And actually, when I started my agency Silver Swan, my first year or two, there was a couple of quieter patch. And I actually went back to Office Angels and spoke to them about doing part-time admin. Like, I have no shame now to go and work in a bar if things got tough, you know. But I suppose a lot of people would. So I suppose it's just a level of confidence maybe, or a level of... I don't know, but I completely agree with you. People would be concerned about what people think.
Here's the thing about that. If we do what most people do, we don't get over average results. See, people that found companies like yourself, people that go that extra route, and by default, you have to not listen to 99% of the people, and you can't care about their opinions either when it comes to what it means. You know, like I can't listen to some people in my family about health or wealth, or because they don't know better. You know, I can't care for their opinions, and I think it's the same for you, you know, if you want an extraordinary life, you want to have your own company, you know, you have to have a different mindset, and you need to be very careful. Who am I listening to, and whose opinion do I care about? And the one thing that I keep telling myself is I only listen to people that are also in the arena, you know, and kind of spending their own sweat and blood. I can't listen to people that are on the ranks.
100%. So there's a few elements there. Yeah, you have to take risks in life. And I suppose, like you said earlier, there are certain people that are willing to take risks and certain people that aren't. And those that are generally achieve slightly greater things because you have to take these leaps. You also need a level of arrogance, really, to be like, of course I can do it. Like you do. So many people, I've got friends that want to set up companies and they've spent about 2 years worrying about the ifs and the buts. And I'm like, I'd have done it too. I'd be 2 years in by now, and I'd have just made the mistakes on the way. So there has to be a level of arrogance to be like, I just think I can do it. But I'll go into my company in a minute. We've recently opened an office in Miami. I decided at about 3 a.m. I couldn't sleep one night, and I thought, I haven't been to Miami yet. That could be cool. There's clients there. Yeah, it's a fair bit of money there. All right then. Woke up in the morning, 8 a.m, LinkedIn, Silverswan's coming to Miami. That afternoon I was like, crap, I need to figure out how to open an office in Miami now. But I kind of like leap, have the idea, leap, tell everybody, and then I'm like, right, I've got to figure out how to do it now. And actually sometimes I put myself out there and tell people, which then makes me do it. Like back in the day when I used to do running, like you'd sign up to a marathon and then be like, oh shit, I've got to do a marathon now. But you sign up to it. Normally a bottle of wine in, you sign up to it, or you tell people like, or back in the day, I'm married now, but if your boyfriend's being a dick, you got, the minute you tell your friends, I've got to leave him, you then got to leave him. Like, so sometimes you got to vocalize your dreams to give you a bit of a, oh crap, I've got to do it now. I've told everybody I'm going to lose some weight. Okay, crap, I've got to do it now. Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you should vocalise what your plans are, and then it maybe spurs you a little bit, because actually then there's a bit of shame to then back out and not even attempt it if you've told people you're going to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Once you make a public announcement, you know, your name is on the line. And while, you know, there is this part where you don't care about what people say, you still want to keep to your word. You know, it's like
exactly
you got to give it a fair shot. I think at the end of the day, I have to put my head on the pillow and think I left it all on the table, you know, that I did my very best, and then at least I tried. Like if I failed, at least I tried. You know, I did say I would do it. I gave it my best effort, and there's always a next try.
Exactly. And so going back to then, I took this job with my sister as her HR manager. And God, I bit off loads more than I could chew in a way, because it was like, right, you need to find 70 staff, you need to find them all accommodation, you need to get them all uniform sorted, you need to organise a training course across 3 resorts, you need to run the training course. I'm like, what? You need to organise all the contracts, you need to organise all that. Like literally, I was the only HR person. So basically, I was like, crap, and I had about 4 months to do all this in. All the chefs had to be cook tested, which sounds fun, but once you get to your 25th chef in your house cooking a tasting menu, you are so done. I put on so much weight in that run-up. They'd come to my house and do like literally a formal tasting menu. And this is all great, but if you've had like 4 in a row back to back, I ran out of friends to invite because I had to do it for 8 people. So at the beginning of it, I had loads of friends hanging around saying, oh, I'm free Wednesday, I'll come for dinner. But in reality, like all these things, the novelty soon wears off and you can't eat it. Anyway, so it was quite a lot to do. I didn't speak any French at the time, trying to liaise with trying to rent accommodation for my seasonal staff, and most people didn't want to rent to seasonal staff because they live like students and they're disgusting. And anyway, so but again, a level of arrogance to be like, right then, roll my sleeves up, let's crack on. Anyway, so I did that for 2 years. I didn't do it for very long because I very quickly realised that the recruitment side of it, the summers I spent recruiting and the winters, I'd then basically all my staff were put into place and had to, do well. And then I was at HR management. And I very quickly realised that I was a good recruiter, but I wasn't very good at HR management. I don't think I was very good. I'm not very patient, really. I'm just like, stop moaning. Like, no one would ever really ring me and say, you know what, Philippa, thank you so much. I'm so happy. They'd obviously ring you to be like, have you got a minute? And then they're just like, anyway, you need to be ever so patient as a HR manager. And I'm a quick mover. You can probably tell. I talk too fast. I move too fast. I get loads of stuff done. I'm a good recruiter. But yeah, so I found the HR management stuff tough. You know, I was having disciplinaries with 50-year-old chefs because they weren't showering in the morning and they stunk. And I'm like, oh, what's my life come to? And I'm like having people, I was literally a therapist, a counsellor, a relationship counsellor, a mother, an employer. And like the amount of crap I was dealing with, like couples, girlfriends crying their eyes out because the bloke slept with a nanny down the road, and I'm just like, oh God, like some of the stuff that's just, and I'd just be like, oh, what am I doing? Also, to be fair, the company was sort of growing, and it would have been more, if my management would have been more effective if I could have been based in the resort during the winter to be like on top of these people, you know. But my life was here in London, you know, my boyfriend was here in London, my husband now, and it was also a lot of travel. Every week or two, I'm going to the Alps to bollock people, fire people, disciplinaries, it was never the HR management. It's never really, I never really found it rewarding, really, because if no one ever rings you with a problem, then you're doing well. It was never like they were brilliant stuff. It was just fire problem. Anyway, did it for 2 years. And realised what parts I loved, parts I didn't love, and didn't think it was fair for the company to continue being the HR manager when I didn't particularly like the HR management side of it. And so handing your notice into your sister's a bit odd. I do think she was relieved though, because I think she thought I was going to tell her I was pregnant. So she was like, oh, you're not pregnant, thank God. Okay, oh crap, you are leaving. Crap. So it's a bit of a trying to exit myself out of my sister's company. But during this time, so the last sort of 6 months of the 2 years there, I was in France loads. And it was very clear that staffing, finding people to do a ski season was easy if you're willing to take 21-year-olds straight out of uni. But trying to find Michelin standard chefs to go work in luxury Russian-owned chalets was really difficult, because a lot of the high-end chefs didn't even really know this industry existed. And even if they did, the salaries weren't loads. Like, you do it for the skiing, you've got to share a bedroom. And so I kind of had to find people that were mad skiers, and I could like allure them in with this like skiing life. And yeah, it would just be a problem. High-end companies trying to find high-end staff, Russian-speaking, you know, hostesses, fluent French speakers, just serious hospitality professionals to go and do a ski season. And the other problem with it is often it was last minute. So what do you do if what if I hired you to come and do a ski season, and you're like one of the best chefs I've got, and you break your leg on Christmas morning skiing, and my guests have spent £250,000 to be there, and they're expecting Christmas dinner in 4 hours. There's no one really you can sort of go to. So it's not just the fact that people, you know, were having to be replaced or were quitting. Like, people were skiing and getting injured. It was just so annoying for me as a HR manager. And so I sort of like asked around a few of my friends. I was like, if I set up an agency like specific for you guys, like luxury chalet recruitment, would you be interested? And everyone was like, oh my God, I'd literally bite your hand off. There were a couple of agencies in the UK that would say they could help with your chalets, but they couldn't really know, and they couldn't turn things around quick. And so, I think it was my friend that said to me once in a bar, you know, someone should set up a recruitment agency here. And I'm like, someone should set up a recruitment agency here. So I drank about 1,000 more Jaeger bombs, and then woke up in the morning thinking, I'm still going to set up a recruitment agency, I think. And literally, I started the intent of Silver Swan. So I decided to leave in the January. I worked right till the end of the winter season, which was like end of May. But in that time, on the side, unbeknown to my sister, I was getting a website built, and I was getting terms of business drawn up, and I was getting myself ready to sort of like operate. And then, to be fair, it wasn't that, and that was 10 years ago, or 9 years ago I started Silver Swan Recruitment. And Silver Swan Recruitment then was very much me helping out my ski mates, going snowboarding as much as I can, helping with their recruitment. And then now it's just sort of like really sort of evolved, just complete by accident, really. But we're obviously doing something right. So now we're at a stage where we have an office in London, office in Dubai, office in Miami. Skiers, well, we hardly do ski now. We basically do a lot of private, all permanent, private recruitment for residences, yachts and jets globally. We have a huge presence with some senior VIPs in Saudi. We send hundreds of people every single year to Saudi. And then, we opened up a Miami office in February. In Florida, obviously, and doing really well in America. Although most of my clients are in New York and California, not in Florida, which is odd, but
so you have to open up two more offices. You know, this is kind of the outcome of this conversation. You will see.
Exactly. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And so, so it's just sort of grown organically. And how we sort of grew from the beginning was that we'd started in the chalet recruitment, and it'd be the owners of the chalet that would sort of comment on the quality of the staff or the efficiency of which the staff arrived, and would say, where did you get the staff from? Like, that was great. And they said, it's this new company called Silver Swan. And then the owners would say, well, do they do villa recruitment? Because I'd like to replicate the team we had here in my villa in Ibiza. I don't suppose they do yachts because I've just bought a boat. And then it'd be like, well, that was all great. I don't suppose that you don't have any permanent staff on your books because our house in Chelsea, we need a new housekeeper. And so it's just kind of evolved just from the client's demand, really. We're now a bit of a one-stop shop for our clients. They instead of our clients having to have 4 relationships with 4 different agencies, one that services their yacht, one that services their jet, one that services their house, which is annoying for a client because they have to just try and explain all the time to different agents like what they want. And really what they want is... You know, we loved our chef Daniel. We just want Daniel. We just want 4 of Daniel. We don't need a different type. They just know what type of staff they like. It's not a different type of staff where they are really. And if they have someone like us that's like knows them through and through, because we've spent 2 years doing their chalets and villas, I know exactly the type of team that they want in their home. And so now our clients are a bit of a one-stop shop for our clients now. They have one relationship with one agency, and we service their entire portfolio from a recruitment point of view.
I mean, I think that level of white glove service, that's really where also families on that level, they appreciate that, you know, where you can really like, you just know them. And I think this again goes to our industry is so much about knowing your client's preferences, and even the chef. I think, like, I know the preferences of the family's guests. Like, I know what's their favorite ice cream flavors, what do they drink, you know, and I think those kind of details that help you becoming a one-stop shop is what makes exceptional service.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one thing that we've done well, so when we started doing chalets and villas, I didn't really see myself as a serious sort of like big formal professional company. I was just hanging out and like, I just saw myself as being young and having fun and all the rest. And I didn't really see it as being that serious. I was just like hanging out in my pants.
Businesswoman.
Complete accidental. I know, complete accidental. But actually, like our competitors, you know, some of our main competitors here in London, we've been going for 9 years, but really, if we think about the private households, the permanent private households we've been doing that properly for sort of 3-4 years, 2 of which was COVID. So we are fairly new kids on the block, and our competitors have been doing it for like 35 years. We're being very disruptive at the moment, and I think we're really annoying a lot of our competitors. And I think the reason is because we started doing the chalets and the villas and the yachts. I thought then trying to do private households, we wouldn't be taken seriously because we wouldn't be formal enough, or I don't know. But actually clients are coming to us because they are bored of our competitors sending them a bunch of identical formal butlers. What they're really wanting is interesting, young, dynamic, well-travelled hospitality professionals to come in and elevate their home. So I just feel that there's a younger generation of ultra high net worths nowadays, and a lot of our clients aren't your 80-year-olds wanting formal butlers. They're 30-year-old tech entrepreneurs that want a really dynamic team in their home to run their home. So if clients come to us and they're wanting to interview 5 chefs for their roles, I'm not sending them 5 identical chefs. I'm sending them a chef that's worked on the biggest yacht in the world, a chef that's worked in Richard Branson's Chalet in Verbier, a chef that's worked in a Saudi palace, a chef that's worked... So a really like interesting selection of chefs to choose from. And our competitors aren't. Our competitors are sending 5 middle-aged private chefs that have all worked in London for the last 25 years, which is all just kind of like not really... And I think, and clients are kind of... The clients that we're working with, they don't really know what they want until they meet a different type of candidate. And they're like, that is what we've been looking for all this time. And we couldn't really pinpoint what was wrong with the other candidates we're getting through their agencies, but we just found them boring and very one-dimensional. And actually, talking to the candidates you're sending us, because we service at different sectors, because we're sending them such an interesting thing, they're actually getting to meet a really different type of candidate that they've not really had access to before. And they're like, actually, the experience that you've got, you've been working in Michelin restaurants, you've done 2 years on Abramovich's boat, and now you're coming here, and actually that's really interesting to us, and actually that could be really, we want to utilize that experience. So we're just able to give our clients a really different selection of candidates for them to interview and for them to trial that they've never really had access to before. So that's why I think we're doing quite well.
How does a chef stand out in your agency to catch on to you? You know, like maybe someone who hasn't been in a Saudi palace yet, or hasn't been on a Abramovich's yacht or something on that scale, you know, that immediately kind of gives them a stamp of approval. Someone who is just, you know, maybe coming from a very highly skilled background in the restaurant industry, but is trying to connect with someone like yourself.
Okay. People coming from the corporate, commercial world into the private world always struggle. It's definitely doable. It's often right place, right time, right family. But there are things that you can do. So I don't think it's not really until you're a private chef do you understand how important food photos, having a portfolio of your work. And most people work in restaurants never need it. But the minute you come to me and I'm like, right, can I see your portfolio of food? And they're like, I've never taken a picture of my plate. And I'm busy getting smashed around the head with a frying pan. Like, you know, I've never really sort of done that. So it's really good if you're thinking of going to the private sector to really start to build your brand as a chef, to really start to build a portfolio of your work, sample menus, food photos, references or letters of recommendation. It's very difficult to get private chef experience without no one giving you opportunities to work as a private chef. But any kind of like snippets of experience would be great. If anybody needs you to go and cater for a birthday party, a dinner party, that can really help. It used to be really helpful here doing a season, because if you're doing a winter or a summer season, then the families aren't really committing to you permanently, though you can go. And so chefs always find it much easier to go from a restaurant to a chalet for the winter, and then all of a sudden it gives you a bit of an insight into what life is as a private chef, because it's such a different, you'll know this better than me, working as a private chef is so different to working in a restaurant chef. You're on your own, it's all on you, you're having to design menus, you're having to shop, you're doing all of it, you haven't got a brigade around, you're washing up. A lot of the homes are open plan kitchen. Half the chefs are disgusting, like presentation wise, tidiness wise, hygiene wise, social skills. You know, I've had some chefs that I took over to their first private chef experience in a chalet, and they've got the most strongest resume, and they've worked in some of the best Michelin restaurants, but they've never actually had to interact with a guest. And actually you get them in an environment where they're having to like bring out plates and present their dish, and they are petrified. So there are definitely social skills that are super important when it comes to being able to talk confidently with the family, discuss their plans, discuss what their requirements are, get feedback, to talk to them about budgets, financial experience, you know, budgeting, provisioning, shopping. These are the skills. These are skills that a private chef need. A lot of you know, being good as a private chef is so much more than just what you're putting on the table, because most chefs can put good food on the table. It's everything you need to do to get that bit of food on the table. So it really is sort of difficult, and I totally get why families don't want to give restaurant chefs their first opportunity, because it's such a risk. Because the chef could come in and just absolutely sink, or they could hate it as well. I know chefs that have gone from restaurants to private and straight back to restaurants, and it's just not for them. It's too high pressure, too scary, just not for them. They'd rather have the comfort blanket of their brigade of chefs around them, you know, and being like 2 floors down from the guests. They haven't got to see the guests. So I think it takes a certain... Yeah, I think it takes a certain personality of chef to enjoy being in the limelight. The benefit of being a private chef is you're the absolute star of the show, when you're getting all the reward and all the recognition. And when things are going really well, it can be incredibly, like, the immediate gratification. You know, you're seeing them eating and they're just literally like worshipping you, like across a dinner table. You never see that in a restaurant. And even if the head chef gets good feedback, great, but it never makes its way down to you. They're still screaming at you about the previous plate, you know. So it can be a really sort of rewarding job. But in terms of standing out, yeah. So when it comes to you're approaching an agency, just be sensible about what you're doing. So don't send me I'm going to just be open. I don't mean to offend people, but some of this, not just chefs, but some of the state of resumes that we get is just like shocking. And I do think chefs struggle to write a good resume because they've never been taught. They've never sat at a desk. Half of them don't even know how a computer works. They rarely go down the academic routes. They generally have a lower level of education, generally, in terms of not culinary education. They're very well educated there. But in terms of like, they never had to sit and write an essay. Or like put together, do you know what I mean? So like they're not used to sitting there on a Word document and formatting a resume to make it look really nice and putting together a really nice sort of like photo gallery. So I really, really do understand why chefs find it more difficult to even know where to begin when it comes to presenting themselves impressively to agents. But we receive probably 1,500 resumes a week into our agency. And so the downfall with that is we flick through them dead quick. And if it's stressful and I don't get it, I kind of just move on pretty quick. I'm not really in a position now to be calling up chefs saying, let me help you rewrite your resume. I think there's some good bits here. I just move on to the next one that's better, you know.
Yeah.
So you don't get a second chance to make a first impression, is what I always say. So don't rush it. I hear people saying, I sent my resume after 300 agencies today. And I'm like, well, that's a waste of time because you can't have done a decent job 300 times in one day. You've literally just probably sent a piece of crap to 300 agencies and you're never going to get a call back. Do one a week, do one a day, but do it nicely. So you want a nice resume, get advice from other people. There are people out there that can help you do it. Make it nice, make it clear, have a photo, have a portfolio of your work. So have an Instagram account or have it stored somewhere nice or put them on a PDF. So I can immediately, to be fair, I look at food photos before a resume. Anyway, pretty much.
I think the food photos tell a story in itself. Like, unless they completely fake it and take pictures that are not actually their food, you get a pretty decent picture by the food pictures.
Yeah,
of what
I completely
kind
agree.
Of resume you're going to have.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because also you could be in a 2-Michelin restaurant for 2 years, but be really, really low in the kitchen and not really have ever done any cooking, and so you could be really crap. You could not be what you think you are, because so equally you could be a head chef in a pub and I could think nothing of that, but actually it's a really nice pub and your photos are amazing. And so and what's really nice, especially if you're thinking about going to the private sector, start documenting your work now, even if you're just cooking for your mum at home or bits in a restaurant, because what's quite nice in an Instagram account is your growth as a chef. And it's nice for you, as you add on it, it's nice to look back over your last 5 years to be like, look how far I've come, look at that plate and my first ever photo I put on here, and look where I am now. And that's really nice as an employer to see, to be like, well, look where he could, where else could he be in another 5 years if that's what he's done in the last 5 years. You can sort of show your growth. So send us what you're sending us and make it clear and nice and clean and crisp. Also, the chefs are flaky, man, generally. Your communication skills need to be, not just chefs, again, anybody. Your communication skills need to be really good. Be where you say you're going to be. Answer your phone. Have a voicemail. Don't give me your mum's landline number from 20 years ago. I need to be able to contact you. Check your emails more than once a bloody month. You know, if I'm emailing you, I get people saying, I've not had a chance to email you back. And I'm like, I emailed you 2 weeks ago. What do you mean about time? I do emails having a wee in the morning. You can find time to email back. So if you're serious about your job hunt, be responsive, be good at communicating, think about what you're doing, present yourself well, and also apply for suitable roles. Apply for roles at your level, because you're just not going to be taken seriously. On our system, we have a portal, a candidate portal in our website. So you can come and view our roles on our website, silverswanrecruitment.com, by the way. But you can come and view roles on our website without creating a profile. But if you want to apply to anything, you have to create a profile. And the benefit to that is, once you've created a profile, you can click at one button on any of our roles. So you haven't got to fill out a form each time and all the rest. And the other benefit, once you've created a profile, you're immediately pulled into our system. So my entire team across all my offices can see you and access your details. So, but with that is when you've applied to a chef role here in London, I can see immediately all the other roles on my website you've applied to. And if you've applied to be a nanny, a maternity nanny, you've applied to be a Russian-speaking palace manager, you've applied to be a chef, and you've applied to be a mechanic, I'm not going to take any of those applications seriously because you can't do all of those things. And it just makes me think that you're just, finger happy and you just sort of click on anything. And so, if I'm looking for a chef, but you have to have an EU passport and you have to have a driver's license, don't apply to it if you haven't got that, because it's just a waste of my time. And then when you do apply to a role you are similar to, you are suitable to, I'm already like a bit annoyed because I'm like,
do you red flag them in the system eventually? Like, do you have a mechanism for that where you're like, okay, this person, like, or is that just mental note taking for you?
I don't have a red flag, but I can see if they've been rejected to 30 other roles. So, for example, my colleague in Dubai is looking at a chef that's been rejected for everything they've ever applied to with our agency, and none of us have ever called him. Then it's probably not going to look that attractive as a candidate. So just take it seriously, and put a bit of thought into it and think about where you want to be and why you want to be there. Agents have different views on cover letters and no cover letters. Half the people talk about you have to do a cover letter and you have to personalise it. I don't read them. I don't even get to it. I look at your food photos, then a photo of you, then your resume, and that all comes later. So for me, I don't look at cover letters because we're dealing with too much volume. But at the same time, I don't want to...
Do you think the families read the cover letters?
If the agent sends them on. The agent might not send them on. So what we do as an agency as well now, if someone's written a cover letter and it's clearly been thought about, I'll always include it. But equally, I can tell a generic cover letter. And if it's just generic...
I personalized all my cover letters.
And I've noticed that.
To the agent and to the job application.
I would notice that. It's because so often I'll get a cover letter saying, I'm desperately seeking my next yacht position. I'm like, okay, but you've applied for a role in New York that's not on a yacht. And so people can really, really easily slip up on cover letters. And even on resumes, I'll get a yachty candidate and it will say, I'm seeking my next 100-meter boat. And I'm like, can you change that? Because this isn't a 100-meter boat. And it just puts people off immediately. Yeah. But the thing is, very few people do, I suppose if you want a way to stand out, very few people do decent cover letters. And if that comes, another good way of doing it to make agents read it is attach it to your resume. So rather than having a cover letter as one document and a resume as the next and a photo as the next, because the first thing agents will do is they'll just open the resume first, mainly to see where are you based, what your nationality is. Because if I'm looking for people based in New York and this guy's based in Saudi, then I wouldn't even look at anything else because I needed to be in New York right now. Yep. And so the cover letter does get looked at, but not immediately. So if you want it to be looked at immediately, have it as page 1 of your resume and then have your resume as page 2 and 3, because then it forces the agent to go past that when they get to it. And then I'd very, very quickly notice that it's a well-written cover letter and I'd include it in all your applications.
So here's something that, I mean, it obviously works because I do always have jobs, but here's something that I've been doing. I take everything in one single PDF. Yeah. It starts with the cover letter and I got my food photos. It starts with a photo of myself, then the cover letter. Resume and all the food photos. It's all one PDF and it's all catered to that particular position. This
is your dream. This is exactly how you do it. You should see some of the crap we get through. It's not that. And if people don't send it through or packaged up, we do that. So we call it a portfolio. We will make your portfolio for you, but help us a bit because we want all the bits there. And the reason we do it is so it forces the family to read your entire portfolio. That's why we package it together. So if you do that for an agent, then that's brilliant because that's what the agent wants to see as well.
So it also sounds like that makes you stand out of that 1,500 applications you have a week. If you see somebody who is actually specifically catered to one position, they put it in a portfolio, they went the extra mile to hand it over to you, perfectly packaged. Yeah, you will take notice of that person.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's just because I can just tell it's actually fairly easy as a private chef to stand out because so many chefs do it poorly. So if you just do it even a bit better than the average, you'd stand out. And never mind you doing it incredibly, like to this level, to your level, you'd stand out immediately because your competition's crap. And even really good chefs and whether it's because they don't know, I think it's because they think it's too. I think people honestly still go for quantity over quality still, and they shouldn't, but they do. Also, have a really good relationship with your agent. Sorry.
Yeah. I was literally just about to say that. I was about to say this is a relationship business. So please go ahead. We are on the same line of thought here.
Yeah, so I speak to some people and they're like, same with clients as well. If I speak to some chefs and they're like, I'm with 20 recruitment agencies, I'm like, well, that's a waste of your time because that's 20 agencies that don't really know you because you haven't got the time to spend with them. Have two, 3 agencies, meet them in person. So like, I'm such a big believer. I'm flying around the world all the time meeting people. Like, if I can go for lunch with a chef on me, at the end of it, I will be able to sell you to a client really well. And as you know, in our industry, it is personality based, like massively. And like, I could have, in my mind, the best chef on my books who could have an incredible career with one family and completely fail with the next family. And so as an agent, this is why there's some crap agents out there, it's vital that I know my clients on a personal level, and it's vital that I know my candidates on a personal level. Otherwise, it's a complete blind, in effect, a CV sending service, a resume sending service. It's just like flinging bits of paper out to people. And also, people come out what they want in a resume. It doesn't actually mean it's true or it's not embellished. Also, don't take photos from Google.
How do you go about that as an agent to verify those things?
Well, we just do good vetting and referencing. Especially if we place in America now, it's different in the UK because doing a background screening here in the UK takes 10 weeks or something. But in America, I can get a full background screening, including an employment verification, in about 4 days. And every placement that we make, we offer for free to the employer a full background screening, which does a criminal check and most importantly employment verification. Because also I've done referencing. We're all cool, and because I ask quite a lot of questions, it's pretty obvious quite soon it's just their mate, like, and not actually their employer. And I just got a few mates to answer the phone call and pretend that they're their boss. But that's the thing. There are people out there that can fake a resume, fake references, get photos off Google, and completely fabricate a application. But what's the point? Because they'll get the job and very clearly realise that they're a shit chef and isn't who that person is. And that's not happened so much anymore. It happened a couple of times back in the day when I was doing shallow recruitment. And then when it all transpired and we'd gone through a lot of issues, I then go back to the resume and realise that most of it wasn't even real. But you can't, especially with a chef, it's not, you can't fake it because soon you're going to be under the heat and having to prepare a dinner party for 30 people on your second day at work. You can't pretend you're a better chef than you are.
Can't fake it.
If anything, my recommendation is under promise and over deliver, because then people will be really impressed. Don't over promise and under deliver.
Yeah. So as an agent, what is your favorite maybe part of the stuff to deal with? I mean, you have everything from nannies to chefs to estate managers. Who do you feel like are the easiest to connect with and place, and why?
I generally find the more experienced people within the private sector are the easiest to work with, because they know what they know. What they know the industry. For example, you've been around a long time. You'd be a dream to work with because you're going to give me exactly what I want, how I want. You're going to interview how I want, easy. You need less coaching, less support. So I suppose in terms of how much of my time and effort do you need? None. You wouldn't need much guidance from me other than a well-matched family. Whereas if I had somebody new to the sector and everything needed work, it takes a bit of time. However, I find that ever so rewarding, and like, most good recruiters aren't in it for the money. I think some people look at recruiters and think, oh my God, they just want to make their big fee, blah, 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 blah. No other industry works for free. People don't get this. I'm going to have a little support recruiters here. As a recruiter, we work for free. right? And imagine if someone said to you and 4 other Michelin chefs, I want to hire you for 6 months. I want all of you to show me what you can do for 6 months. And at the end of it, I might pay one of you for that work. I might. None of you would bloody do it. Like, no one, you would never go to a lawyer. You'd never go to 5 law firms and ask all of them for a ton of legal documents to be drawn up. And at the end of it, think, nah, don't do it anymore. I'm going to put the role on hold. And then none of them get paid. But yeah, we do it. And so yes, when we make a placement, we get our fee. But actually, we do our entire job from beginning to end for free. We will meet the client, take the brief, normally have to educate the client if you're a good recruiter, because normally what they're looking for is unrealistic and unfair and normally illegal because it's too many hours and not enough money. Educate the client, which is tricky. We'll go into that in a minute, because recruiters that take shit roles on rubbish money and then do it are not doing anyone a service. We're in a position here to try and regulate the industry a little bit and have decent roles that are real roles, that are the right salary, market rate and all this. Anyway, do all that, get it advertised, use our database, use our 10 years of experience of contacts we have there, use our brand to reach people globally, do all the interviews, spend bloody ages with chefs trying to get their paperwork in order and looking decent. We also, as an agency, we don't just send resumes to families. We also, candidates hate this, but we ask our candidates to record short introductory videos that we send with the So then when a principal is reading a resume, they've also got a 60-second little video of you saying, or me, hi, my name's Philippa, I've been in this for 10 years. It gives them a much better insight. Anyway, it's a very good part of our process. Candidates hate it, clients love it, but it improves.
You do personality tests too?
No, I told you, I've gone back and forth on this numerous times. We haven't yet.
Yeah, I've dealt with one family, and that was a particular request by the family. But they run a lot of companies where they require that, so they also do it for the household. It was very interesting. So I also had to do video, but it was actually like a 5-minute video, I think, almost. Which immediately exposes so much, I think.
Yeah.
If you have to speak to the camera for a couple of minutes, and then the personality test took me like 30 minutes to get through.
Yeah.
Like
I go back and forth.
thing.
The personality fast test, I might start offering it as an additional people want it, but I don't know. I think people overthink it. Do you answer really, or do you answer what you think the answer should be? And I don't know.
I think there is something to it where you, as the person reading the personality test, you kind of have to be educated on how to read them, because obviously I think people will be like, yeah, obviously I'm all of those good things. And I think as the person processing it, you have to have experience it. It's just like you have experience reading resumes. I think you will develop a certain sense on what's real and what isn't. But I'm pretty sure, personality, you'll try to, ideally, I think they're made in such a way that you can't fake it, because, many questions are repetitive but contradictory. So eventually, after the 10th question that's contradictory, you will see a pattern.
Yeah, fair.
I think that's how they're made.
But I like the video thing, because some candidates that are like, I don't want to do the video, blah, blah, blah. I think they could use it for discrimination reasons. And I'm like, well, if they're gonna say no immediately based on your looks or how you speak or your demeanour, then they're gonna make that same decision at interview. So would you rather do a video and then not be called for interview, or would you rather have all the effort of going for an interview and be rejected in the first 7 seconds? They say it takes 7 seconds to make a decision in an interview, they say. And so I always say to people, worst case scenario, they look at video and think an immediate no. They may have liked your resume, immediate no video, but it would be it would still be a no in interview based on the same reasons, is what it is. But normally...
And I think... Sorry, but I think the reality is that nobody will hire someone in the private stuff if they don't like your face, and that it doesn't matter what color it is. I think that's the unfortunate reality. This is not corporate. No. There's like no quotas here to live up to. It's someone's home. Yeah. And they will just never entertain you if they don't appreciate your face in a way. Like, and that could be, as I said, whatever you look like, color, shape or form or gender.
But in reality, what we get from it is that's what people's concern is, but actually that's never really a thing. Normally it has huge benefits where a resume may not be that strong, but actually, when you send it over to the client on paper might think you're the weakest in the bunch. Watch your video, think, oh my God, I can definitely see her in our house or him. Like, I warmed to her straight away. And so actually what it really does do is it really strengthens an application. It rarely weakens unless you're massively obese and got piercings all over your face. It's never really going to weaken your application. It generally strengthens because it just humanises it. And where they can dismiss a resume very quickly based on, oh, they've only been a year and a half in each place, and they can dismiss a piece of paper super quick. Actually, if they see you talk for 2, 3, 4 minutes, they're actually like, they really remind me of our housekeeper. They're going to get on really well. Like, I've seen, you know what I mean? So it really humanises it. You get dismissed less easily. And then at least you know, if you're called for interview, the client already likes what they see and hear. They've already seen and heard you. And so you're already on a stronger keel. So what we find is it just, it speeds up an interview process because the right people are going for interview. There's no surprises when people sort of turn up. But anyway, going back to the world of recruitment, so we do all of this, send people, and actually it's not until the sort of like, we want to offer a job and they want to accept, is a recruitment fee sort of introduced. So that's a huge amount of work with zero guarantee of any kind of reward at the end of it. And so people do recruitment because they are so passionate. And I think this links back to what I talked about earlier. So the reason I find it so rewarding helping new people get into the industry. So you said earlier, who do I find easier to work with? The easiest people are the people that have been doing it forever because they know what they're doing. They can walk into an interview and get the job. Yep. The hardest people are the people new to the industry that need a lot of work. But at the same time, that's where I feel most rewarded because these people come back to me saying, you've literally changed my life. You took me from this like horrific kitchen environment and I'm in a palace in Saudi earning 4 times the salary, not paying any tax, and hanging out with royals, you know. And so it's super, super rewarding. From a commercial point of view, the people I like placing most are estate managers because they then often will use me for their recruitment. Do you know what I mean? So if we're placing the decision maker, and if I've got a good relationship with an estate manager, then I'm fairly confident that when they need staff, they're going to go with me who they know and like and trust and all the rest. So from a commercial point of view, we are very incentivised to place estate managers from a business development point of view.
Yeah, well, that makes perfect sense. You know, then you grow exponential because, you know, you build that relationship. Maybe you even did them a favor by placing them in that position, you know, and then you're really building that trust and it pays forward. Yeah, so how do people that come from a Western culture appreciate working, for example, in those Saudi palaces? Because I remember that's like literally over 10 years ago, I was offered a position in Abu Dhabi, and I turned it down for cultural reasons. I felt like, because every single time I did work there, and that was usually around, for example, Formula One, you know, where I had to fly with clients over there. And I had never felt that it's a place for me because I felt like a complete stranger and things that are normal to me are kind of objected.
So that's a slightly different one. So actually, I would say the chefs that are in our palaces in Saudi, I wouldn't actually say as private chefing because there's one property recruit for 150 chefs in that kitchen. And even as a private residence. So actually, I guess if someone's looking to transition into the private world and are open to a Middle Eastern culture for whatever reason, that's a good stepping stone in as well because they will take hotel chefs and restaurant chefs. You don't need to be a private chef because you're not actually in a private environment. You're very much in a hotel environment. It is what your kitchen feels like. Yeah, you can come back to your home country having said I've worked in a royal palace, which then indicates private experience, but it's not actually private experience. So I suppose, there are different ways you go into it.
It's more like a hotel setting at that scale.
Yeah, it is a hotel setting. But getting into those things, so getting into like a big private environment is an easier transition. If you're going to go into a big property that's got 30 chefs, that's easier than if you're going to go into a home where you're the only chef. I would say if you want to go from a restaurant into home as an only chef, I probably wouldn't recommend it actually. I'd try and get bits of experience first so you know what to expect. You want to go in confidently, you want to know what you're doing. So if you can get some like contract work, temp work, there must be agencies out there that are looking for chefs to do like dinner party here, dinner party there, wedding here, help there, or have friends.
Yeah.
I'll have friends that are private chefs. Try and tag along to sort of gigs, or if you happen to be between jobs, I'll be a private chef for a week or two. Try and pick up short jobs just to give you a bit of an insight. Make sure that you even want to do this. Do you really want to be leaving a decent job in a restaurant for this big hotshot private chef role that you may hate? You kind of want to make sure that this is the environment for you as well. This is the environment for you. You can then start to say you can do some ad hoc temp bits or short-term contracts or help friends out. You can then sort of say on your applications that you've been private chefing for 6 months here and there. Also as well, a lot of this, when it comes to getting your first job in the private sector, it's generally right place, right time and who you know. Generally, someone you know has got an opportunity and has given you a punt. It's actually rarely through an agency because a client can justify paying my fee for somebody that's really good, really hit the ground running, someone that's difficult for them to find themselves. That's how they can justify a big recruitment fee. They're not going to pay me for someone that's never done it before because they can pick up one of them easy. Just put a local advert. Do you know what I mean? They could easily get a kid in a restaurant down the road to come and work for them. So generally I say to people, as an agent, I'd love to be there. I'd love to help you get your first role, but it's very difficult for me to justify to a client why they should pay me for somebody that's fairly easy to get themselves. It's generally through someone they know. So hang out with chefs that are in the industry you want to be in. Go and make friends or connect or network with chefs that you know are working as a private chef. Get them to tell you all about it, introduce you to other people, bring them in when they can. And it's generally, it's who you know as much as what you know when you're entering this industry, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, that's really true. If you think about the beginning of my story, it was a friend that brought me into the first home, and that was just a birthday party, but that kind of was originally opened the door. And then till now, I brought so many friends into the industry because there's always a family, friends of the family who are looking for someone, and you can make those original connections, and you can kind of vouch for the character, and the family trusts you, and that usually opens the door.
Exactly.
Well, Philippa, thank you so much, for sharing all of those insights. I think this is really first-hand knowledge for our chefs on, how to get the foot in the industry or even to level up for existing chefs. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. And where can people connect with you, whether it's chefs or other people in the industry who might be looking for new opportunities, connecting with you? Yeah,
fab. So Philippa Smith, I'm very active on LinkedIn. That's another thing as well for chefs out there. Be social, out on online. People connect on there. Very active on LinkedIn. You feel free to message me on there. But Silver Swan Recruitment is my agency. So www.silverswanrecruitment.com. I'm very happy to give advice. I'm very happy to talk to people. I'm very happy to have anyone on my podcast. So I also have a podcast called Life in Private Staffing, and so anyone that wants to get a little bit more insight alongside this podcast, come and have a listen and sort of listen to some of our stories as well. And then anyone that we can help find staff, anyone that we can help find work, give us a shout. We have a presence, as I say, head office in London, presence in the States, and a presence in the UAE as well.
Awesome. And soon to be in New York, right?
Soon to be in New York. Yeah, next on my list.
Yeah. And for existing private chefs, also make sure to connect with us. We have a Facebook group that I just put together because I want chefs to network, and I think that's a great place. So it's called the Private Chef Podcast, and it's a Facebook group. And also check out our podcast. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Other episodes. So thanks again, Philippa. Thanks for your time. This was an amazing conversation.
No problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef Podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.